Wait, is it working now? I think I've somehow unmuted myself. I think it's working now. If it's working, thumbs up. Good Lord, I've been speaking the entire time with no audio as well. So let me start again, just to kind of give you a sense of what happened. The audio is working. Fantastic. I connected the way it works is that I use a tool called Restream. The Restream connects to LinkedIn events. That event itself doesn't actually pick up the stream, so it ultimately just doesn't go live on the actual event. It will just okay, I think everyone can hear something now. So Kim says it's working. Fabulous. Yeah, it just technical issues. Sorry, this is very unprofessional of me. I hate that it does this. But I just want to welcome everybody that is here. And for those that can't be here and those who are on the event and it doesn't show up because it's going to say canceled or some crap, I'm ultimately also going to put this presentation in a post this afternoon and everybody can download it. You're more than welcome to have it. It's definitely something which I feel could be quite useful for anyone who is looking within the space of trying to improve your skills within brand strategy. And I don't want to take up any more time of what I'm supposed to be doing, because I think the most important thing is to actually go through the presentation and show you what I've done. So let me crack on with it and show you what I have here. So let me put my video on. Maybe that will ultimately work. Maybe this will put is the audio back? I hope the audio is back. Good Lord, this is insane. This is terrible. I feel like I should do this again just so that everybody gets a bit of experience. But please let me know if you can hear me again, because there you are gone again. No movement or voice. Is my voice back? Can anybody in the comments just let me know if it's there? This is terrible. Sorry, everybody. Let's just get through the technical. Now it's working. Okay, fantastic. Now that we're ultimately here and you can see the presentation, let's go through it in detail. So the masterclass itself is just a focus on how to illuminate your brand's core through the power of consumer insights. I then just quickly introduce myself to the 6 or so people that are currently watching, and to those in the future that will be watching this. My name is Garth Monty. I'm sure a lot of you know me specifically from LinkedIn. Been 14 years in the industry, from marketing and brand side. I am also a creator, and it is very much what inspired me to create my own business, which is called By COB. I'm not going to go into the details of why I called it that. That is another story for another day. But basically what By COB does is that I inject myself into a business to create perfectly packaged brand strategy programs, which focuses on the three fundamental areas of sales, communications, and campaigns. So this presentation will give a very kind of like detailed process of how I look at what a brand strategy is, how brand strategy is developed, and yeah, Kim, that's how I pronounce my surname. It's Monty, like the full Monty or Monty Python, if it help everyone remember. But the state of this presentation, and this is a post that actually came about yesterday, last night from Dean, who's the managing partner at Halo, is kind of like how I want to set the scene for the presentation for today, is that creativity is simply smart, and creativity it's good for business. Creativity always sounds like such a blase cliche thing, but it's really not. It's really just a way to how to separate yourself and make your business and make your work stand out from everyone else. And a famous author, Marty Neumeyer, has always said is that you've got to zig where everyone else is zagging. And it ultimately is, how do you make your brand not look like a commodity? So love this post, Dean. If you ever watch this, thank you. This post was stunning. It's exactly what we needed to start off with this. But I want to just start off with the importance of brand strategy. This is something that is always a good mixture of people trying to understand brand strategy from like the way creatives work in terms of design. But this is more a sense of like, it's something that's dedicated specifically to a brand that's integral to the way that it is formulating your values and how you talk and how you position yourself. So the importance of it is that you can differentiate yourself, you can build amazing connections with clients and non-clients, and you can ultimately drive long-term business success. So think of it in a perspective when you split it into two parts. The first part being you have a brand strategy and you also have a business strategy. And every time I speak to a client, or if I'm in a workshop or in a training session, this is where I always like to start, is your brand strategy is what you do for customers, and your business strategy is what you want customers to do for your business. Business strategy is revenue specific. Brand strategy is dependent on how you want your brand to look and feel, how you want your branding to be strategically positioned to speak to customers. So this is just a very simple and structured way of how to define one that fits into the other. And they both obviously mix and play a part in your brand strategy affects business strategy and vice versa. So if you look at the brand strategy process, everything that you're building it on as a foundation, and this is always going to be the best starting point for any brand who, whether you have a brand strategy or something that you're going to be building in the future or just amending, is that the foundation is built upon your customer. It's if you know your customer better than they know themselves, you've positioned yourself in the right and perfect place to create a brand strategy. And I think that that's one of the strongest and fundamental places that I learned it was when I worked at a Dynamo all those years ago. Our CEO always said, and that's where I get the do cool shit stuff from, is no more care, more do cool shit. Is that you have to know so much more than what they're ultimately prepared for, so that you can woo them and surprise them and delight them. And I feel like that is something that is so beautiful about crafting a brand strategy, because it looks into the psychology of the customer and the non-customer and allows you to develop something where you're strategically positioned to be better than the competitor, more memorable, and ultimately just doing stuff that's going to make you stand out. So one of the most important starting points, and this is the key topic of today, is by looking at just taking off my jersey because it was hot, is by looking at consumer insights. Like, what are they? Where do you get them from? what is the best understanding that you can get from them. And I like to always break it down into four key areas. One being demographics. It's obviously known, it's something that is always pounded into you from a marketing perspective or advertising perspective or building campaigns. Is like, know everything about them from a demographic perspective, and that's a great starting point. The second one is trends. We've developed ourselves as a population where we see a trend, like when the bottle trend was going around of what's the Stanley Cup, the Stanley bottles. My goodness, that was one of the most memorable trends where we are kind of wooed enough as a society by a brand and by movements and trends of people that we ultimately, which goes into the third part, we change our behavior based on what we see as trends. And that is either purchasing behavior or the way we use certain products, the way we use apps, the way we use technology. And the last part, which is a blend of everything, are human truths. And I think you probably hear this a lot. It's very much an industry related word on making sure that there's something about what people do that makes it real. And that's the human truth. And the picture is very much a human truth of that. I think people actually like cats than they actually like dogs. That's my human truth. I love dogs, but I love cats even more. And then you're looking at something specifically at the sources of consumer insights. And I think that this is something that is most integral to this particular workshop, is where do you actually find consumer insights? And there's some that are obviously discoverable on the day-to-day, very easy to find. And then there's probably some that are a little bit gated. There's some that you have to pay to get access for, and doesn't make any of them better or worse than each other. It's merely how you discover them and how you want to actually use them. So the first one being social media conversations. That is the best starting point, I think, for any brand, because it's free. You can access it anywhere. The second one, although it falls under potential social media, are actual video trends. Video is just one of the most consumed pieces of media, if not the most consumed, if you think of products like TikTok and Instagram and Snapchat, is that video plays a big part in the content that everybody creates. And the third one is behavioral data. It's like, where do you access what people are doing in terms of their change in behavior and how they act? And the fourth one is what I mentioned about potentially being a barrier to entry, are potential MarTech tools or just MarTech in general that allows you to use a particular tool to access that information and then blend it all together, and you have your beautiful craft of consumer insights. The first one I actually want to touch on is, and this is something which I've focused on for many, many years, is the social media conversations in terms of actually finding insights that are there. And as much as I've harped on in the past about how X was Twitter is relatively painful, it is still the number one platform for actually discovering live conversations, seeing what's trending worldwide. If there's a live event, a movie, or something that's happening from a political standpoint, it always goes on there first. And those are things that we always want to look at in terms of tapping into the buzz, is analyzing hashtags, looking at the sentiment of conversations, looking at what are engaging metrics in terms of particular platforms, what gets more likes than the rest. And the last one are influencer interactions. A great example of an insight that you can get from influencer interactions is, if you're aware of a famous tech YouTuber, MKBHD, he more recently has been in the spotlight for reviewing products like the Rabbit R1 and the AI pin from Humane. And that was specifically on the basis that his reviews were saying that the products were terrible. And that's a case of like, that is a beautiful insight to anybody who's actually producing more products in the future, is that listen to what's being said, understand it, and being able to use that towards the way you actually create a strategy in the future. The second one being video trends is that YouTube is the best friend for anybody, mine in particular, if you're actually looking at how to discover what is being produced, what is popular, how could that ultimately be utilized for your brand, which then kind of flows into the elements of like viral challenges, what are the actual content themes. And then the last one, which I think is probably a little bit, underrated to an extent, are viewer comments. Because if you go into a popular video and you spend time looking at what people are saying, it's much like if people want to discover what is the key theme, but then what do people enjoy or dislike about it. That way you ultimately can look very deeply into a core topic or a core theme, and then blend that all together and take that out as a core insight. Behavioral data, that's really just understanding the consumer's actions, is by looking at elements like purchase history, website analytics, app usage, and loyalty programs. And a brand that I think can always, you can rely on them doing something really great is look at what Checkers in South Africa is doing. Is they're ultimately testing out a brand new app with a base specifically in an area where they can utilize the new delivery aspect. That way they actually can understand the consumer's actions, and they can better sunset the old app, release the new one nationwide, and see how that actually flows out into their strategy of, what are people most interested in buying and getting delivered with their new Checkers Hyper product. And that itself plays a really good roadmap into defining their brand strategy much further on, which will then roll out into many different aspects, into their advertising, into their campaigns, both organic, both paid, into their out of home, etc., etc. So behavioral data is vitally important. And the last and the fourth source for discovering consumer insights is MarTech tools. And these you can get either for free, like Google Trends and SurveyMonkey, but then you also have paid tools like BrandWatch, which is renowned for providing one of the best monitoring or social listening tools that enables your brand to not only track what people are saying about you, but what people say about other brands. And you can ultimately leverage that to produce, very core insights. And just as an FYI, Digital, Technologies in South Africa, they are the provider of BrandWatch in South Africa. So if you're interested in a product like that, go speak to them. That is not a sponsored ad. That is merely because I know that they sell it, because I used to work there. And as a last point to this, and I think a very short story within this greater presentation, is I was actually not too long ago forced to delete a post on LinkedIn telling everyone as a story how I use BrandWatch to discover an insight, which led to me almost predicting a product release of an alcoholic brand. And that it was like, just knowing that people watch a lot of like hot ones on YouTube of celebrities eating chilies. So why not use that trend to kind of produce a new flavor for a drink, and kind of put that all together, made a little story about it. And a few weeks later, after presenting this to the client, that product was actually released. I had nothing to do with it. I don't claim any kind of like scope around me working with them doing it. It was merely just showing that if you have great insight, you can come up with great ideas. Transforming data into a compelling story unlocks authenticity and an emotional connection. I will, guys, print this out, I don't know, tattoo it to your leg beans, get it vinyled onto a shirt, something, but there's probably a much cooler way of saying this. But ultimately, it's like numbers always might seem a little boring, but without it, you can't unlock anything that enables you to tell an amazing story. So one of the brands that I want to start focusing on as part of this workshop, in detailing something that I've broken down in terms of the framework that I use with clients, is looking at Spotify as a brand, in how they developed a brand strategy, one of the brand strategies, to develop a narrative which allowed them to update their product, which actually kind of showed results. So if you look at it from that angle and from that perspective, there are like four major points to this. The first one being around the consumer insight. Give me a second, I'm gonna sip of water. It's hot today. um, consumer insight is that there are two parts to it, and I always look at it like this because it's a very valuable part to breaking down consumer insights. Is there's an observation and then there's an insight. The observation from Spotify is that people love sharing music, and I'm sure a lot of you use Spotify, a lot of you use Apple Music. It's very much in the same situation for any music sharing app. But the major insight is that music is deeply personal and social. Like everybody who has gotten married, it's not necessarily everybody, but we know that the tradition in getting married is that there's the first dance. You remember what the song was. You know, mine was Bryan Adams, and that is something which I'll forever remember. And it's very personal to you. So having that observation, knowing that insight, allows you to then craft a narrative from three key areas: having an approach, building an emotional connection, and then making it authentic. So the approach was that music is for everyone. The emotional connection is that it is something that always potentially evokes a memory. It's also something that connects you to different moments in your life. So that is something which can be very nostalgic, can be something that's very exciting, very sad. And the authentic part about it is that it's positioned itself as being the platform that understands everything. And consider the amount of data that they get. It must be just millions upon millions of unique pieces of data they get on a daily basis about what people are listening to, which leads to the point of application of these insights. And this is something which I think everybody has probably seen on a yearly basis from Spotify is Wrapped. Is like, how did they take that approach to collecting all that information, all those insights, all those valuable pieces of data about those who listen to music, and actually use it to create Wrapped, and also like your discovery playlist, like you get on a daily basis. It's then on a perspective of like, how do you develop the marketing campaign based on that approach? So for them, it was more a case of like, where do we put the messaging? How do we put the messaging out? You know, how does it speak to a particular audience? And then that last part of the user experience is, you know, how do you create personalized recommendations and curated playlists to enhance engagement and retention? And I think this is what makes it so special every year of them doing it, is that we always want to show people what music is for ourselves, what we listen to, the band you listen to the most, the song you listen to the most. And I think that that's why like music is one of the only things that can break down barriers or language barriers between people, is that we all have a connection to it. And the last part to it is that using those insights to shape your strategy has three core areas of implementation and results. Is that they're able to obviously show the growth in their platform, which we've seen year on year, both in users and in revenue, but also the fact that they're seeing a lot of loyalty behind those who stick to using the actual product itself, to also the position, how they position themselves in market, which is very clever, very strategic, and very creative. And as we said right in the beginning, creativity is great for business. So I think it very much plays into how we see this with Spotify, and how that ultimately works and plays out for them, where it's not just showing the fact that a lot of people listen to hip hop. It's about taking that, formulating a clever piece of copy, linking it with a beautiful piece of creative, sticking it in out of home, in areas that will engage people, in train stations, on next to highways, on your phone. And I think it's just so beautifully crafted. I think everything about this is really just a masterpiece of exactly how, if you workshop this or workshop with this with anybody for your brand, it's like, it's not just a brand strategy that lives on a piece of paper as a written instruction or a line for you to use in the future. It's how you mold every part of your business. It's how it develops something for your three core areas, you know, your sales, your communications, and your campaigns. All of that blended together is why having a brand strategy and a narrative like this makes it so powerful. In the next part is, and this is totally brand new, this is very much part of what I wanted to connect with everybody in this workshop, is part of a client case study and using this type of framework, putting in a very, very heavy level of creativity and trying to, you know, change the way we do work, and how I get clients to change the way that they do work. Because the more that you do that, the more that it's like you're training a new muscle, you get used to it, you get better at it, you get stronger, and it just makes everything for the business even better. So SodaProp is one of my clients, who is owned and founded by Gabriel de Mata, and he is working within Cape Town independently as working in real estate and selling property. And him coming on board as a client where there was a task was something very unique to me, and I'm sure unique to a lot of people, is that the real estate industry is well known for being boring, right? You're also never just going to be a part of the real estate type of messaging and marketing, because if you're not a buyer, why are you interested in what real estate agents or companies are selling or saying? And that is something which I spoke very heavily about with Gabriel, is saying like, the most important part here, and again, because it sounds so cliche, is like, we've got to zig where others are zagging. Where Pam Golding and Seif are doing all that work, let them do it. But let us do something that's totally different. So we would take the insights, turn it into a story, and make sure that it actually adds value to his current customers and future customers as well. And the most integral part to this, and something which I don't think people would even consider, is how do you also excite and delight people who aren't buyers in a real estate market? And I think that that's what makes it so interesting and such a moldable type of approach to building a brand strategy, is that we first looked at the fact that you have to absorb the values, mission, and vision of the brand of SodaProp. And SodaProp is actually, soda is Portuguese for deaf, and this is all layered from the family values that Gabriel used in terms of developing this brand. So then having that, putting that in a bucket, and then also then looking at the consumer insights of real estate boring, how do we find something that's cool, we do cool shit, we do something different, make it stand out. And that was then put together in the framework, and this is very summarized, but this is to give you a very kind of introspective look on the three parts of a brand strategy that we worked on together. Was crafting the narrative, was making sure that there was an emphasis or emphasizing the personal characteristics of a home. The emotional connection is that homes are places of memory and life. I'm sure we can all attest to that and agree to that. And then the authentic part to it is that we want to target emotional stages and life phases. And to really put that into a better summary, is that we started off with saying that we wanted to give everyone a voice in order to find the right home, but we actually kind of like flipped it on its head and said we want to give every home a voice. So we actually want to like personify these homes. We want to turn it into something which is, it basically like sounds corny, but it speaks to people. It's something that you don't just see a house, it actually speaks to you, and it connects with you to where you are within your life stage. So that then helped us with the message development, which was, we just called it, the campaign, something like Key Changes. It was a little bit of play on words as to like, get a new key for a new home, but it's also like changing the environment. And something I love about this is that, and I'm going to trademark this, is that it is an out of home, outside of homes. Keep that in mind, right? Is that out of home has always been the billboard. And why I think it's so important to this is that if you think of the for sale signs or sold signs, they're always so boring. It's got a picture of the real estate agent. It just says sold or for sale. It's got no information. But that is like perfect real estate, is like a little billboard. It's like, it's a space for advertising. And if you think of what brands like Pineapple Insurance have done, is that they've utilized out of home, not to push the product, but to push the message to the consumer and make the consumer decide. And that's ultimately, from a marketing campaign, we just wanted to redesign the for sale and sold signs with tactical, emotionally driven copy. And then we wanted the user experience to be personalized messages based on home features. One being, and I'll give you a perfect example, is that a lot of homes that are sold near schools, we would want to have signage that speaks to those parents and families that potentially walk to school, they walk past and they see these signs, that we don't want it just to be so one-dimensional. We want there to be something that is different and it stands out, and so maybe a little bit cheeky, a little bit sassy, a little bit provocative in some sense, but we want it to be there so that we can build on growth from a brand awareness perspective and just be a little bit thought-provoking. The smart part about it as well is that because it's not just a for sale sign, it's out of home, we also consider the fact that there will be people wanting to take photos of these. So that will ultimately build earned media, which will help build brand loyalty and trust and help with loyalty and affinity in the long term. And then the basic market position here for Sodaprop is we just want to be different. There's nothing wrong with being different, because if you are different, people speak about you, they take photos, they remember it. And this is something I think that is going to transform the business for Gabriel and Sodaprop. This is just a mock-up example of what is actually being done at the moment for one of the homes that's being sold. It is a heritage home, and there is a new young couple moving in there who will be expecting their first child and going to be getting married sometime this year. So we're looking at it and just saying it's old charm, new fire, right? In that we know that this is something that could just grab the attention of the person walking past or driving by. You know, we want it to be something memorable. We don't want it to just be sold with a picture of Gabriel. You know, we also want there to be the ability for people to contact him with a QR code and cell number. But at the same time, you know, we can be very flexible and transformative with this. So this, as a first start, is basically what would be in terms of the tangible element, but this will also roll out onto digital, onto the way we do things on the website, etc., etc. So this was just I think from a workshop perspective, just a very good insight from me working with a client on how I use that brand strategy process, building up a narrative, putting it together in a framework so that we can ultimately inject it into all parts of a business. And getting very close to the end here. I just wanted to make sure that there was a little extra time in case anyone did have any comments or questions, is that at its heart, a successful brand strategy is about knowing your audience, telling their story, and consistently delivering value. You notice how I looked into the camera while saying this, is that this has to be the most believable element to anybody who, whether you're a founder, you are a one-person marketing team, you're a marketing team of 90 people, whatever the case is that the most successful brand strategy is just knowing your audience. That is it. It's so basic. It's just doing a little bit of homework here and there, putting it all together, and you've got something that you can craft, that you can be proud of. It can ultimately make changes. And at the end of the day, we're all chasing revenue, right? Like, we would all be lying to ourselves if we wanted to do cool shit and be creative, but we still need to sell. That is every part of every brand, is that you can either be selling, creating coffee, or selling, you know, as a real estate agent, or you could be doing, you know, home insurance or life insurance. Be as creative as you want to, it still needs to sell. So a lot of this is very specifically designed to allow you to be creative. But one of the major takeaways here is that as long as you understand the difference between a brand strategy and a business strategy, that gives you the elements of saying, cool, this is what we're doing for the consumer, this is what we want them to do for us. In order to make sure that all works together, we have to know them better than they know themselves. We have to then build up a narrative, and think of a narrative as like a soundtrack to an amazing movie. Could you imagine watching Harry Potter in its intro without that amazing soundtrack? It'd be so flat, lack emotion. It would just be that you wouldn't have that connection when you hear that music. Think of that as your narrative. Every time you as a brand are doing work and attach your narrative to it, make people feel like that's the original soundtrack of your brand, so that when they're walking through a store or they're browsing an app or whatever they're doing, it makes you come through and recall. The last part of it is just that application. It's like how you ultimately want to use your brand strategy, whether that's in your product, whether that's in your marketing or your communication, or even within your people, within your business. I think there are endless opportunities on how you can actually implement it. But this is something as a key takeaway I just want everybody to just kind of take from this workshop and ultimately be able to use for your brand. I did race through it a bit. I wanted to make sure we had enough time if there were any questions or anyone had anything to say. If you do want to extend the conversation and have any future questions, or pick my brain about what it could mean for your brand, or how we could ultimately potentially build a project for your brand, or train your team, or bring in workshops, you're more than welcome to scan this, set up a call between yourself and me, and we can have that conversation. But I truly love doing this type of thing. This is something which is very close to my heart. It's something I've been doing for years. I wanted to bring back as much of it as I could now in terms of training and workshops. But this is very much the tip of the iceberg, right? Is then saying this is ultimately what the power of consumer insights are. This is how you bring it into a brand strategy. But there is so much more to it. And I think that there is time and a place to look at big brands like Patagonia and Apple and Nike, but it's very difficult to just mold yourself on what they've done well, because they didn't do it well over a year. They've done this well over decades. And this is from learning. This is from decades of consumer insights. This is from them constantly improving and rehashing and redoing and improving, and all of those things make them the most memorable brands. But always remember, though, is that creativity is giving you the ability to have big brand thinking, but you don't have to be the big brand to actually execute. If that makes any sense, it's basically me saying you don't need to have a lot of money. You don't have to have a lot of people. You just need to look at the numbers, put together a beautiful story, and be creative. Because once you're able to do that, you can do cool shit. I felt like that was a perfect ending. But really, is this something which I harp on, and I've probably repeat myself a million times. Thank you, Stephanie. I really appreciate you attending. Is that this is the core to any business, is think about what Red Bull do. I know I'm not going to speak about big brands, I just said it, but if you think about somebody falling from space and then drinking a Red Bull, can you not tell me that's not doing cool shit? I know if you own a small coffee shop, you're not going to drop somebody from space because that's ridiculous. But look at what's available to you. How can you make it cool? And then what do you do to make sure that you can capitalize that for your brand? Once you have that as an actual recipe, I don't believe you can go wrong. It's then just a matter of time of testing, trialing, improving, and rehashing, and doing everything you need to do to make sure that you're not a commodity and that you're the most memorable brand. That's it. That's it. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. I just want to leave it to a point now of if there's anybody here who still wants to ask a question, you're keen to extend the chat, whatever the case is. I am checking the comment section now. Kim, I love you. Thank you for joining. You're always here. I feel like you're my biggest fan. I owe it to you for a lot of things. I have zero success, but I don't owe you to. I just want to thank you for joining. And if there's anyone who does have a question, I'll stay on for a bit until there's literally no one here, and then I will jump off. I will also make sure that this obviously lives on my profile, so if you want to come view it later, please do. Send it to your friends, send it to your colleagues, your mom and dad. If you want to book a discovery session with me for your brand, for your team, please do. Always looking for new business. Trying to feed a child. Sorry, that was too emotional. I'm just keen on finding new people and brands to work with. But I will also be sharing the presentation on LinkedIn, so keep an eye out for it. If you want to download it, steal it, use it, put it up present it to your agency or your team, please go ahead. You're more than welcome to do that. questions. I'll stay on for a little bit, folks. I've got nowhere to be at the moment. What if I put on a little bit of music? A little bit of music for everybody. All day, and you could just watch me sit here and drink water. That'd be amazing. I'd be like I'm on Twitch. Just start sending me donations. It's a joke. Anybody got any questions? Everybody want to jump off? Everyone had lunch? What are you having for lunch? Bleak, I missed this. Is there any way to view the video in retrospect? Michael, yeah, sure. As soon as I'm finished and ending the stream, it will live here permanently. It will be here on my channel. I'll comment that right here so everyone can see it. This video will live on my profile forever. Yeah. Yo, guys, it's hot today. It is hot. Let me actually turn this off. Yep, Michael, thank you. Appreciate you attending. If it was just the last part of it, then that's cool, that's rad. If there aren't any other questions, I'll give it another 2 minutes. Comments? Anybody have anything cool they want to share? Anybody have anything nice for lunch today? I had cereal for lunch. I had muesli. Muesli. No. I think that's I think we're at then. No other comments? Quickly, guys. There. I can still see there are 9 people here. You're just watching me. Cool. I love you for being here today. I am so sorry for the technical issues. I'm going to take this up with my lawyer. Nope, I'm just going to be better with the way I set this up in the future. One of my future plans is to, it may be annoying for some, is to actually stream at least once a week with something like this, whether it's educational, inspirational, creative. I'm just going to do one of me eating cereal, see if that's a vibe for people. But I do appreciate everybody who has attended this or watching this retrospectively. Even if you got to this point, many, many thanks. I love you long time.